Hello everyone. I suppose I'm making this video here to sort of display some of my thoughts on what I think of a genre I really think is kind of lacking in today's world. It's the arena multiplayer shooter. So this is what I'm going to be doing now. It's going to be a sort of a opinion on something like that, on something that relates to gaming, or something that I think makes up the fabric of what we consider to be gaming culture. Hold on just a second. Now, in gaming, of course, there's been a lot of different genres that come around: first-person shooters, third-person shooters, stealth games, fighting games. But going to shooters in general and what the arena shooter sort of meant to the enjoyment of gaming and all that, and one of the prime examples I have to go towards is Unreal Tournament 2004. Now, a little bit of history. My experience with this game was all the way back when it was new, where I was exposed to the Unreal series at the time. I think it was Unreal 2, The Awakening, Unreal 2003, and Unreal Tournament 2004. Now, granted, this was a time back then when a lot of websites on the internet gave out game demos, or this was, I think this one might have been PC Gamer doing game demo discs, and that was like the good old days where you could go around. Like, if I got this one from online, I either got it from GamePro or probably Gamers Hell, both of which offered demos of games. So, Unreal Tournament, what I liked about it was there was such a big action focus around it. This was a first-person shooter where you were going around and kicking so much serious butt, and it didn't slow you down at all. This is a different era entirely, one that wasn't necessarily dominated by realism and like next-gen things. This wasn't like the Crisis era where everyone had to make the most graphically great game out there. Granted, Unreal Tournament 2004 looks great. It's actually aged pretty well, and you can see in the art style and in the graphics too. I actually am surprised how much I really enjoy to look at this. I guess this is just like the shows that the Unreal Engine just has that quality about it that you can't really just ignore. But another thing that really carried over well is gameplay. This is like a fast-paced shooter where you're going all over the place. You don't have to worry about fatigue. You don't have to worry about stuff like shields, recharge. Well, you can do recharging health, but you also don't have to worry about reloading. This is like a time when I suppose like the reloading mechanic, of course, being discarded here is something that really works in the game's favor. It's just fun to go around and fire your weapon with reckless abandon and not having to worry about anything else. The arena shooter was like the definition of equal starts all over. And I'm a big Halo player, so equal starts is something that I have to consider pretty important, because when you drop in, you're all pretty much the same. It's after you spawn, after you're told to go out there get frags. What you do there is up to you. It's like the critical difference between what we consider to be a good first-person shooter today and a great first-person shooter, like back in the early 2000s, is something that shifted quite a lot. Like, take a look at Unreal Tournament. You basically spawn with a shield gun, or 2004, you basically spawn with a shield gun and a basic assault rifle, both of which are somewhat viable in their own right, but you really want to go out there and get something better, because your shield gun actually can take down enemies, and it doesn't have any ammunition, but it does have a lot of risk using it, so you're better off just going around finding something else. And the assault rifle, which has like a little bit of punch, but again, not very useful. You want to go around and find something. This is also useful because even if you're out of ammunition with all your weapons, you are technically not defenseless, because your shield gun's always a background fallback weapon. But all the weapons in the game are basically lying around on spawn points, and they're basically just rotating around. And, well, it catches your eye, first of all, and you want to go towards it. And using weapon spawns kind of helps you memorize the layout of the maps, too. So there was that connection to map layout and weapon control. There wasn't necessarily map control, though. There kind of was, but there kind of wasn't at the same time, because you were more encouraged just to go around taking people down instead of just sticking on one part of the map, porting power weapons. Like, as I said, this was in the early 2000s. I'm a Halo guy, so growing up with the first Halo game and going on to Halo 2, which I don't think came out for another 2 years after this came out, this is a massive difference in design philosophy. Because in the original Halo games, you wanted to get something good. You wanted to get a sniper rifle or a rocket launcher and just lock down one area of the map so that nobody else can get around you. And you essentially won the game that way. And this is a concept that carried over to Halo 2 and Halo 3. In Unreal Tournament, you didn't see this sort of thing. You sort of just do as you please, as long as you get kills. Now, power weapons, of course, did spawn. There was the Ion Painter I used a second ago, and there is a Redeemer, I believe. No, I don't think the Redeemer was in this map. I think it was in a different map, but all the same, there were power weapons, and they did spawn regularly, but they weren't totally dependent. You weren't dependent on them to do well, because you could do well conceivably with every single weapon. Yes, every single weapon had a class, more or less, but you could do equally well with them if you knew how to use them correctly. And the best part is, like, none of these were totally locked off from people. When you respawn, you could just simply pick up the weapon there. Like, you can pick up a sniper rifle, you can pick up a link gun, you can pick up the minigun, and just go to it. And it wasn't all that far away. The maps themselves were relatively smaller, or maybe they were just larger, and the fact that you had faster base movement just made up for that fact. And like going back to Halo again, I'm going to be drawing some comparisons to Halo because that was kind of like the arena shooter of the time as well, where you just had faster base movement. You were just moving faster. You had low gravity at times, and you had mutators. I'll get back to the mutators in a little bit there. But it was such a difference. And there was, of course, the console and PC divide at the time. At the time, I didn't have necessarily a great PC, but I had one at the time, which allowed me to play basically all this stuff. And it's just interesting to see how much of a difference it was. Actually, if memory serves me correctly, I think there was a console version of Unreal Tournament. It was either 2003 or 2004. I can't remember which, but so there wasn't. You could have like the opportunity to play as well, and of course there was Unreal Championship, which came later. So we know what it's like then. Then came the rise of the modern shooter. This is something where we tend to have a little bit of a problem now, because we have a change in definition of what makes a great shooter. First of all, Unreal Tournament was accessible. You had to get good at it, but anybody could pick it up and play it because it was just like a simple sort of program. Of course, there were tutorials as well, but after you got into it, anyone could play it. Now we have games showing up at this time like Call of Duty Modern Warfare. It was, I think, Modern Warfare released in 2007, and that took the entire gaming world by storm, because at that time we were mostly just playing stuff like science fiction games and stuff like that. That was sort of ruling the area. But now we had a game, Modern Warfare. It was a Call of Duty game set in modern times that hadn't been seen before. And the popularity of this game was unprecedented, winning Game of the Year and basically taking over the console market. And PC as well, but not quite to the same degree, I don't think, as it did in consoles. And it sort of cemented a new place for these dude bro gamers. Because Unreal Tournament 2004, while it was accessible, Call of Duty was extremely accessible. Whereas it was so accessible where you actually had children in their single digits playing these games, and playing them decently well enough so that they're able to prestige. But granted, if you play long enough, you do that anyway. But the fact of the matter remains that we had kids younger and younger getting into these sort of games. I was actually fairly young too when I played Unreal Tournament 2004. I'm trying to remember if it's, let's see, 2004. That was I was 12 when this game came out. So I was a little bit younger than the recommended age on the box, but I had a little bit of gaming experience by that time. But come Call of Duty 4, you had kids as young as like maybe like 6, 7, 8, 9 starting to go into these games. And I talked before about the dude bro sort of thing, but it also created the stereotype of the young childish gamer, that a lot of us tend to look down upon, especially in this day and age, and even like in the dude bro sort of thing. It's like Call of Duty is for two people, dude bros and like 5-year-old kids, and I kind of wish that was an exaggeration. So what happened to the arena shooter? Now, it didn't disappear, not entirely, because later versions of Unreal Tournament did release as well. Like, we had Unreal Tournament 3, which actually turned me off as a game because I was not a fan of the art style, because Epic, after releasing games like Gears of War, tend to really roll with that art style in all of their games. And I wasn't very much a fan of that, because it went against the aesthetic style of 2004, which I thought was one of the best ones. Everything looked alien, everything looked wrong in some way. As a result, it was not really as well liked. People played it, of course, but I don't think it was as cherished to people as the original games. So was that the only example of like arena shooters existing in this day and age? Well, the list isn't very long, because that day and age kind of moved on, and going into the new decade, everyone seems to be focused on modern shooters, and it seems that this is still going on. A lot of the shooters today tend to have stuff like recharging health, no health bar at all, so that if you get hit, you have to take cover, and from there you will just heal via osmosis. This isn't necessarily bad, because it was kind of it can work when done right. Like, there are games, of course, like Medal of Honor Airborne, where you have semi-recharging health, whereas if you lose a portion of your health bar, it won't recharge past a certain point. Or if it kind of went all out like it did in Halo 2. I think Halo 2 was the one that sort of pioneered the recharging health. You still had the recharging shield bar, but you also kind of had like a set amount of hit points that recharge in the background as well. But it really came to a head in the Call of Duty series, where you had no health bar, no fatigue, or anything like that. And like after you got hit, of course, recharging health is as simple as just sitting back and just waiting for the blood to clean off your screen. That design choice permeated into different parts of gaming, where now you had every dime a dozen shooter out there followed the same sort of aspect of Call of Duty. So you had the recharging health, but you also have the one aspect that defines a modern shooter versus anything else, and that is an aim down sights mechanic. The aim down sights mechanic is, of course, meant to replicate the real life process of manually aiming a firearm by looking down the sights of the weapon, and from there you are bestowed an accuracy bonus at the cost of a speed penalty. Now, this is one of the most dividing parts of any aspect of modern gaming versus the early 2000s or pre-2000s gaming. Now, looking at this video right here, you can obviously tell there is no ADS mechanic. It just wasn't a thing back then, where you were basically just hip-firing your weapons, and from there they were just as accurate. Your crosshairs didn't change. There was no recoil. There was no sprint thing that gave you a bonus versus not being able to fire your weapon, or a accuracy penalty. It just was. It was either one or the other. But we were introduced to the ADS, where you had to choose now whether or not you wanted to aim better at the cost of your speed. And this showed up everywhere after this. Not just in Call of Duty, of course. It just moved on to the stuff. Like Battlefield had it. And actually, yeah, Battlefield showed up 1 year after Unreal Tournament 2004. I think it released in 2005. But you had the ADS mechanic there as well, where you sacrifice your speed for accuracy. Call of Duty. Trying to remember, we had like a whole bunch. The list is actually way too long to mention all that, because every single sort of modern shooter utilized it. And it even got to Halo at a point, where some people were talking about, well, it was a big sort of thing after the reveal of Halo 5 beta gameplay, where it appeared like an ADS mechanic was in place, and people were basically like rioting over it. But it was a quasi example, and I think it's clear that the mechanic was put into place simply to compete with the likes of Call of Duty. And I can't fault them for that, because you have to try to stay relevant in a changing market, especially one that revolves around quick gameplay style. But actually, it was more interesting to see Destiny go down this path, where it was essentially way more like Call of Duty than anything else. And that wasn't necessary. That wasn't arena based at all. But it was just interesting to see that the Bungie, the developers of the original Halo series, that were very focused on hip firing aspects and equal starts, change to including things like one-hit kill weapons on spawn or stuff like that. And it's also interesting to note that in Unreal Tournament 2004, your shield gun can kill an unarmored person in one hit if it's fully charged. So, not necessarily... You're not guaranteed it, but one can say the same thing about the bolt shot in Halo 4. So, is the arena shooter coming back? And one of the reasons I asked this is, of course, with Halo 5 coming out. And specifically, the multiplayer is specifically titled The Arena versus Warzone. And where, of course, in the arena, you are given equal starts. That was one of the big things that they were pushing right from the very beginning. You will have the same equipment upon spawn as everyone else. Everyone has the same abilities. Everyone has the ability to move a little faster if they want to. You can all traverse the environment. And the only time that you would have like any sort of difference would be if it would be like, of course, if you picked up a weapon or if you picked up the power-ups. But these were all on-screen pickups. And I think it's very telling that a lot of the Halo 5 stuff is consciously trying to replicate an old-school arena shooter. And I guess one of the things is like where you're shown a picture like the map and all that, or at the beginning of the game, and the fact that power weapons on the map have a rotating spawn point. Where like you just look any time around this map here, any type of pickup point for like stuff here in Unreal Tournament, where that style is deliberately taken into a modern setting, and it just makes me feel that we're trying to make a push to get this sort of thing back. Like we're trying to bring back an aspect of the Quake era or the Unreal Tournament era, and we're trying to bring it back into modern gamers. We're trying to show people exactly what gaming was like to us in this time and how we can basically have that time again. But the question is, will it work? And I'm gonna be honest, I don't think it really will make as much of an impact. I think that the modern style of shooters is kind of here to stay because of its accessibility, because of the fact that a lot of people will simply be able to take maybe 2 or 3 hits before dying, and the presence of kill streaks and stuff like that. Like, you had it in Hardline somewhat. That was an arena, but you can just simply say that of course in Call of Duty as well. I mean, the Call of Duty itself is kind of one of the other closest examples of an arena shooter, because there just simply isn't all that much left to put in there. And it's not. Like, Call of Duty at its core is choosing one weapon over another in loadouts, no map pickups, you don't start equally. And the fact that you can customize kill streaks mean that there is one that's objectively better than another. And if you're good, you'll have that, you'll be slotting those things in, you'll be selecting one thing over another and neglecting the rest of the sandbox. That's really not the best sort of shooter design. I think the best thing is to be able to use like the entirety of the sandbox. I just want to talk about this as well, which is a cool thing about Unreal Tournament, is the inclusion of mutators. Now, mutators in Unreal Tournament are essentially presets here. I was lucky to actually find some that were online, and it's surprising that the links still work, because like some of those were put online in 2004, 2006, but it was great to see this sort of thing. Mutators are essentially aspects of the map that change the mechanics of the game to make it more interesting. Some of the most famous were like Insta-Give, where you're all given shock rifles that kill instantly, where you're given like low gravity, quadruple jump, or stuff like you're putting extra weapons into other game types. That's really cool because it allows you to sort of mess with the mechanics. It was kind of like custom games before custom games with Halo. But not necessarily to the same amount of options, mind you, but to the same sort of general principle, and it sort of pioneered that sort of thing. Now this is cool because the one I got equipped right now was simply for hilarity purposes, which is essentially a mutator that modifies the momentum of weapons, like the weapon force applied. I was specifically looking for something like this because I wanted to up the hilarity factor, to sort of emphasize the over-the-top nature of Unreal Tournament, to sort of bring that spirit in. And anytime you hit someone with a weapon that deals some sort of force, some blowback force, it's magnified. Now you're given the option to magnify something. I magnified everything by a factor of 10. That's why you're able to see people just fling off into the distance like that. It's it really makes things rather interesting. It makes things really sort of fun. And that's what I'm really trying to look for in modern games, is to bring that sort of back. Everything is so gritty, so realistic, so brown. What's wrong with color? What's wrong with over the top? What's wrong with stuff like rifles that shoot goop, or like giant shotgun things that shoot like balls of explosives, or shock rifles which shoot energy beams or blow up orbs and stuff like that. There's like a lot of possibility out there, but we seem to be doing what was popular, and what was popular was making Call of Duty-like games. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think that, by and large, we're not going to see a whole lot many more arena games, not for a little while, because once you get on a well-worn path, if you want money, you don't really tend to stray apart from it. And I guess that's one of the things that's that sort of makes it a little bit difficult, is of course money is involved, and when you have people that see the success of other companies, they tend to follow suit. And as of right now, arena games, for the most part, don't seem to be where the popular thing is, especially with games like Black Ops 3 that are going to be coming out. The fact that Destiny has the new Taken King coming out, and Destiny does not fit my definition of an arena shooter, not at all. I don't think that we're going to be seeing very many other Unreal tournaments for a little while now. I think that there's one in pre-alpha, but I'd like to see more of that. But we're going to see some, in my opinion, but we're not going to see a whole lot. And I think that's a big mistake, because I think that there's still like a pretty good audience. Like the fact that people are still buying Unreal Tournament, the fact that I bought Unreal Tournament 11 years after its initial release. I would have loved to get this game earlier, but there might be an online community left, because like there's still people that are playing Counter-Strike Source and Counter-Strike 1.7, so who knows. Counter-Strike as well being somewhat of an arena game that still has that popularity, so who knows. Maybe it's going to be sticking around after all, but in my opinion right now, I think that the age of the arena shooter as we knew and love it is kind of behind us now. And it kind of makes me wonder what's really ahead here. What are we going to be seeing now? And the answer is, in my opinion, stuff that follows the lead of Call of Duty. There's nothing we can really do about that. Unless we see a major change in the direction that the industry is going, people know what's going to be popular. People know that they're going to be buying the newest Assassin's Creed, which has had like 10 games already with the same basic mechanics. They're going to be buying the new Call of Duty. And my hope is that the arena of Halo really makes a comeback, because if it does, that shows that maybe people are really still into like an over-the-top sort of arena shooter. I would love to see it come back. It would really bring a smile onto my face. That's just my quick thoughts on the matter. Maybe I missed a couple points or not. Maybe you could share me your experience of arena shooters and what they really meant to you as a gamer, as a time that we grew up in. Hopefully that time will come back. I will be eagerly awaiting it. Thanks for sticking around. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.
Double kill! Black Monkey. Double kill!
Nailed him!
Your programming is inferior!
Suck on
You have won the match!